Michael dropped his coffee cup, and it shattered on the floor. Can you imagine? After 15 years, his dead wife was standing right there behind the counter. Same face, same green eyes. But her name tag said Claire. You see, 15 years ago, there was this terrible accident. A storm. Sarah didn't make it home that night. Michael buried her, said goodbye forever, promised he'd never love again. But life goes on, right? He found love again. Jennifer, their daughter Emma. A second chance at happiness. Now listen to this. Michael whispers her name, Sarah. His voice is shaking. 15 years of grief poured into one word. And for just a moment, something flickers in her eyes. Like she remembers him. Like she knows who he is. But then, pure terror. She backs away saying, I don't know you. But that voice, it still is Sarah's voice. She runs. His dead wife actually runs away from him like he's some kind of stranger. Michael's standing there with broken coffee cup pieces at his feet, and his whole world just got turned upside down. Everyone else is going about their normal day. But Michael, his reality just got shattered into a million pieces. He's sitting in his car thinking, am I going crazy? Or did I just find my dead wife working at a coffee shop? Mountain View Cafe. That's where everything changed. He memorized every detail because tomorrow he's coming back for answers. But here's the thing that's eating at him. How do you tell your current family that your first wife might be alive? Her name tag said Claire Wilson, but everything else screamed Sarah. The way she moved, the way she touched her hair when nervous. Jennifer and Emma are waiting for him at home. They trust him completely. How can he destroy their perfect world? Because if Sarah's really alive, what happens to his marriage to Jennifer? What happens to Emma? Tomorrow he's going back to that coffee shop. Tomorrow he's getting answers, no matter what it costs him. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. His dead wife is out there somewhere, calling herself Claire, with no memory of their life together. But that look in her eyes when she ran, it wasn't just fear. Something deeper was trying to break through. Because sometimes people don't stay buried. Sometimes love finds a way back from the dead. Have you ever had everything you believed turned upside down in one moment? Let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button for more stories that'll leave you speechless. Let me take you back 17 years. Michael and Sarah Anderson were living the American dream. Picture this. Michael comes home from his architecture firm every day to find Sarah humming in their kitchen, flour in her blonde hair, because she's baking his favorite apple pie. They're talking about having kids, planning their future, completely head over heels in love. They had this little house on Maple Street, and honestly, they thought they'd grow old together there. Life was absolutely perfect. Then came the day that changed everything. Sarah shows Michael a pregnancy test, and he's over the moon. They're dancing around the kitchen, picking out baby names, planning the nursery. Sarah's glowing with that maternal joy, already protective of the tiny life growing inside her. But here's where tragedy strikes. 3 months later, Sarah loses the baby. And that beautiful, perfect marriage, it starts cracking under the weight of grief that neither of them knows how to handle. The miscarriage changed them both completely. Sarah starts blaming herself, withdrawing into this silence that Michael can't break through no matter what he does. Michael throws himself into work because he doesn't know how to fix her pain or deal with his own helplessness. They're going through the motions of being married, but that easy happiness they shared, gone. That's when Sarah starts taking these long drives alone, trying to find some peace that just won't come to either of them. October 15th, 2009. This is the night that destroyed everything. There's this massive storm that came out of nowhere, and Sarah decides to go for one of her drives after they had another painful argument about trying for another baby. Michael watches her leave with tears in those beautiful green eyes, and their last words to each other were angry ones born from grief. He should have stopped her, should have said, I love you, instead of letting her drive into that storm heartbroken and furious. Here's what the police told Michael later. Sarah was driving down Highway 92, a road she knew like the back of her hand. But the rain made it treacherous. Her car hydroplaned at 60 miles per hour and slammed straight into this massive oak tree. The impact was devastating. The driver's side was completely crushed, trapping Sarah inside twisted metal and shattered glass. When the paramedics finally got to her, she was barely alive, her face so bruised and swollen you couldn't recognize her. They rushed her to Memorial Hospital. Michael spent the longest night of his life in that hospital waiting room. He called everyone, Sarah's sister in Phoenix, her parents in Boston, all their friends. Everyone who loved Sarah gathered there, praying for a miracle. The smell of disinfectant, the constant beeping of machines, it all became the soundtrack to Michael's worst nightmare. He's making bargains with God, promising anything if Sarah would just survive. But sometimes God has plans we can't understand. At 3 a.m, Dr. Rodriguez walks toward Michael with this look. You know the look I'm talking about? The one that says everything before a single word is spoken. Mr. Anderson, I'm so sorry. We did everything we could, but the injuries were too severe. Your wife didn't survive the surgery. In that moment, Michael's world just stopped. Time became meaningless. Love became nothing but a memory that would have to last him the rest of his life. They took Michael down this sterile corridor to see Sarah one last time. The body was covered with a white sheet, and when he pulled it back, he saw blonde hair matted with blood, bruised face, same build as his wife. Through his tears and overwhelming grief, Michael whispered the words that would haunt him forever. Yes, that's my Sarah. But here's what Michael didn't know. Another woman had died in a completely separate accident that same terrible night. The hospital made a mistake that would change everything. The funeral planning was a blur of impossible decisions. Michael chose Sarah's favorite hymn, Amazing Grace, even though Grace felt completely absent from a shattered world. The funeral director suggested a closed casket because of the injuries, and Michael agreed. He couldn't bear the thought of people staring at what the accident had supposedly done to his beautiful wife. The entire church came to say goodbye. But the woman they were mourning was actually lying unconscious 50 miles away in a stranger's home. The burial happened on the grayest October day you can imagine. As Michael threw dirt onto that mahogany casket, he made a promise to Sarah's memory that he would honor their love forever. Friends and family surrounded him, but he felt completely alone. And here's the heartbreaking part. At that exact moment, 50 miles away, the real Sarah was waking up in Thomas Wilson's farmhouse, asking, "Where am I?" with absolutely no memory of the husband who was burying an empty casket and mourning her death. So Michael drives home from that coffee shop completely shattered, right? He's sitting in his driveway for like 20 minutes, just staring at his house, trying to make sense of what just happened. How do you walk through that front door and pretend everything's normal when you just saw your dead wife serving coffee under a different name? Jennifer's inside making breakfast, humming that little tune she always hums in the morning. Emma's probably getting ready for school, complaining about some tests she has today. And Michael's out here in his car, having what feels like a complete mental breakdown because his entire understanding of reality just got shattered into a million pieces. He finally works up the courage to go inside, and Jennifer immediately knows something's wrong. This woman has been married to Michael for 8 years, and she can read every expression on his face like it's written in bold letters. "Honey, you look like you've seen a ghost," she says while flipping pancakes, and Michael almost starts laughing hysterically because that's exactly what happened. But how do you tell the woman you love, the mother of your child, that you might have actually seen a ghost? Instead, he just mumbles something about being tired and sits down at the breakfast table, trying to act normal while his hands are still visibly shaking. Emma's chattering away about some science project she needs help with, completely oblivious to the fact that her dad's entire world just got turned upside down. She's asking him about volcanoes and whether he thinks she should make hers erupt with baking soda or vinegar, and Michael's nodding and saying, "Whatever you think is best, sweetheart," but his mind is back at that coffee shop. Those green eyes that looked at him with such terror and confusion. The way Claire touched her hair when she was nervous. Exactly the same gesture Sarah used to make when she was thinking. Jennifer keeps shooting him these worried looks across the kitchen table, clearly sensing that something much bigger than tiredness is going on here. Michael tries to focus on work, but it's absolutely hopeless. He's supposed to be reviewing blueprints for this new office complex, but all he can think about is Sarah. Was it really her? Is he finally losing his mind after all these years? He finds himself Googling things like grief hallucinations after 15 years and psychological effects of seeing dead spouse, trying to find some logical, scientific explanation for what happened. Maybe the stress of Emma starting middle school triggered something. Maybe 15 years of carefully buried grief finally erupted to the surface. But deep down in his gut, he knows what he saw was real. That woman wasn't a hallucination. She was flesh and blood, and she looked exactly like his Sarah. That evening, Jennifer's making her famous pot roast, and she's had enough of Michael's strange behavior. She puts down her wooden spoon, wipes her hands on her apron, and turns to face him with that look that means business. "Michael Anderson, what is going on with you today? You've been acting like a man with a secret since you walked through that door this morning." And he wants to tell her so badly it physically hurts. This woman has been his rock, his salvation, his second chance at happiness after he thought his life was over. She deserves to know the truth. But how do you look at your wife and say, "Honey, I think my first wife, who I buried 15 years ago and mourned for years, is actually alive and working a coffee shop 20 minutes from here"? So Michael gives Jennifer this carefully constructed half-truth that tastes like ash in his mouth. He tells her he had a weird day, saw someone at a coffee shop who reminded him strongly of Sarah, and it just brought up some old memories he thought he'd dealt with years ago. Jennifer's incredibly understanding because that's who she is. She knows about Sarah, knows how deeply Michael loved her, knows that losing her nearly destroyed him. She even suggests maybe they could visit Sarah's grave together if it would help him process these feelings. But Emma looks up from her algebra homework with this curious, intelligent expression. At 12 years old, she's smart enough to sense when the adults are having conversations with missing pieces, even when they're trying to protect her from complicated truths. That night, Michael lies in bed staring at the ceiling while Jennifer sleeps peacefully beside him, completely trusting him. He feels like the absolute worst husband in the world. Here's this amazing woman who brought him back to life when he thought happiness was impossible. And now he's carrying this massive secret that could potentially destroy everything they've built together. What if Sarah really is alive? What if she starts remembering who she was? What would that mean for his marriage to Jennifer? For Emma, who's never known a world without him as her father? For the beautiful life they've carefully constructed over the past 8 years? These questions have no good answers, and they're eating him alive. Michael gets up at 5 in the morning, unable to sleep another minute, and makes coffee in the quiet darkness of his kitchen. Even that simple, everyday act reminds him of yesterday's earth-shattering moment. The sound of the coffee maker brewing, the rich smell of Colombian beans, it all takes him right back to that instant when time stopped and his dead wife looked at him from behind a counter. He's made a decision during his sleepless night. He has to go back to that coffee shop. He has to know for absolute certain if Claire Wilson is really his Sarah Anderson. Because living with this doubt, this enormous, maybe hanging over his head like a sword, is going to drive him completely and utterly insane. So here's Michael, driving back to Mountain View Cafe like a man on a mission he never wanted. His heart's pounding so hard he can hear it in his ears. His palms are sweaty on the steering wheel, and he's rehearsing different approaches in his head. "Hi, Claire, I'm sorry about yesterday, but you look exactly like someone I used to know. Excuse me, miss. I think there might be some mistake about who you are." Nothing sounds right because this entire situation is completely impossible. How do you approach someone who might be your dead wife without sounding like you've completely lost touch with reality? How do you even begin that conversation? He parks outside the coffee shop and sits there for another 10 minutes, gathering every ounce of courage he's ever possessed. This is the moment of truth. This conversation will either confirm that he's having some kind of elaborate psychological breakdown, or it will reveal the most impossible, life-changing truth he's ever encountered. Either way, his carefully ordered world is about to change forever. Because sometimes the people we love most, the ones we've buried and mourned and said goodbye to, find their way back to us in the most unexpected ways. And Michael Anderson is about to discover that death isn't always the end of the story, and love doesn't always stay buried in the ground. Now let me tell you what really happened to Sarah 15 years ago, because this story is about to get incredible. Picture this. Sarah wakes up in a completely unfamiliar room, her head pounding, bandages covering cuts and bruises she doesn't remember getting. Standing beside her bed is this gentle older man she's never seen before in her life. "Where am I?" she whispers, and when she tries to remember how she got there, her mind is completely blank. Not just about the accident, about everything. Her name, her life, her husband who's probably frantic with worry. Thomas Wilson, a retired farmer, found her on a back road after the storm, unconscious and bleeding, no identification anywhere to be found. Thomas tells her how he found her that terrible night. He was driving home from checking on his livestock when he saw her crawling away from a mangled car, delirious and badly injured. The vehicle had flipped multiple times down an embankment, completely destroying any identification inside. Sarah was mumbling incoherently about needing to get home, but she couldn't remember where home was. Thomas made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Instead of calling 911, he took her to his remote farmhouse and called his daughter Patricia, who happened to be a nurse. They treated her injuries privately, believing she was just a homeless woman who'd been in an accident. Patricia Wilson, who's actually Dr. Patricia Mills now, diagnosed Sarah with severe retrograde amnesia caused by the head trauma. She explained to her father that Sarah might never recover her memories, that her entire past could be permanently erased. They had no idea that 20 miles away, Michael was identifying the wrong body at Memorial Hospital. Sarah had been thrown from her car before it caught fire, and another woman, a Jane Doe who'd been in a separate accident, was burned beyond recognition. The hospital's mistake would separate Sarah from her old life forever, creating a tragedy that no one could have predicted. Thomas and Patricia made another life-changing decision. Since Sarah couldn't remember who she was and had no identification, they decided to give her a new identity. "How about Claire?" Thomas suggested gently. "Claire Wilson. You can be part of our family now." Sarah, now Claire, had no choice but to accept this new life. She had nowhere else to go, no memories to guide her back to her real family. Thomas became like a father to her, and she became the daughter he'd lost in a car accident years earlier. It was a strange kind of healing for both of them, but it was built on a foundation of unknowing lies. For 15 years, Claire Wilson built a completely new existence. She worked as a waitress, a store clerk, a baker, finally settling into her job at Mountain View Cafe 2 years ago. She learned to live with the strange dreams that plagued her sleep. Images of a man with kind blue eyes, memories of dancing in a kitchen, feelings of love so intense they left her crying when she woke up. Thomas always told her these were just her brain trying to fill in the gaps, creating false memories to replace the ones she'd lost. But deep down, Claire always felt like she was living someone else's life, like there was a whole world out there that she'd forgotten. Which brings us to yesterday morning at the coffee shop. Claire's making her usual latte art, humming to herself, when this man walks in and orders coffee. The moment she looks at his face, something explodes in her brain like fireworks. Not a memory exactly, but a feeling so intense it takes her breath away. This man, these blue eyes, they're connected to her somehow. Her hand starts shaking so badly she can barely work the espresso machine. When he says her name, Sarah, it hits her like a physical blow. That name resonates through every cell in her body, like coming home after being lost for years. Suddenly, Claire's brain is flooded with fragments. Dancing in a kitchen with flour in her hair. Strong arms holding her while she cried about something heartbreaking. A voice whispering, "I love you," in the darkness. Wedding vows spoken under an arch of white roses. The images are coming so fast and vivid that she feels like she's drowning in memories that aren't supposed to exist. This man standing in front of her isn't a stranger. He's the face from her dreams, the love she thought her damaged brain had invented. But how can that be possible? Thomas told her she was alone when he found her, that no one had ever come looking for her. The memories are too much, too overwhelming, too impossible to process all at once. Claire starts hyperventilating, backing away from this man who somehow knows her real name, knows who she used to be before her life got erased. "I don't know you," she keeps repeating, but even as the words leave her mouth, she knows they're lies. Her body knows this man. Her heart knows this man. But her conscious mind can't handle the truth that's trying to break through 15 years of carefully constructed amnesia. When he reaches for her with desperate love in his eyes, pure panic takes over, and she runs. Claire drives home to Thomas's farm like she's being chased by ghosts, which in a way, she is. Her whole body is shaking, and she can't stop crying, though she doesn't understand why. The memories are still coming in waves. A miscarriage that broke her heart, fights about trying again for a baby, driving into a storm with tears streaming down her face. But how can these be her memories when Thomas found her alone? How can this man at the coffee shop know her name when she's been Claire Wilson for 15 years? Either she's losing her mind, or everything she thought she knew about her life has been a lie. She pulls into Thomas's driveway, and he's already waiting on the porch like he somehow knew she'd come home upset. This man has been her anchor, her father figure, the only family she's known for 15 years. But now she's looking at him with new eyes, wondering what he's kept from her, wondering if he knows more about her past than he's ever admitted. Thomas sees the devastation on her face and knows that the life they've carefully built together is about to crumble. Because the truth has a way of surfacing eventually, no matter how deep you bury it. And Claire Wilson is about to discover that she used to be Sarah Anderson, a woman who was deeply loved by the man who just found her serving coffee. Michael walks back into Mountain View Cafe the next morning like he's entering a battlefield. His heart is pounding so hard he's sure everyone can hear it. He scans the entire place, but Claire isn't behind the counter. There's just this teenage kid with purple hair making drinks and looking bored. Michael approaches slowly, trying to seem casual, but his hands are literally shaking. "Excuse me," he says to the kid. "Is Claire working today?" The teenager shrugs and says, "Nah, she called in sick. First time in like 2 years. Must be really bad." Michael's stomach drops because he knows exactly why she's not here. Yesterday broke something in both of them. Michael orders a coffee he doesn't want and starts talking to the other employees, trying to seem like just a curious customer. "That blonde woman, Claire, she seems really nice," he says to an older woman wiping down tables. "Yeah, she's the sweetest," the woman replies. "Been working here about 2 years. Lives out on Willow Creek Road with her dad. Real quiet type, keeps to herself mostly." Willow Creek Road. Michael memorizes every word. He feels like a stalker, but he needs answers. He needs to know if the woman who ran away from him yesterday is really the wife he buried 15 years ago. So Michael drives out to Willow Creek Road like some kind of private detective. It's this winding country road with old farmhouses spread out every few miles. He's looking for any sign of Claire, any clue about where she might be living. Part of him feels absolutely insane for doing this. What kind of man tracks down a woman who obviously doesn't want to see him? But this isn't just any woman. If this is Sarah, if his wife is really alive, then he has every right to know the truth. He's been mourning a ghost for 15 years while she was living a completely different life just miles away from him. Then he sees it, a small white farmhouse with a red mailbox that says Wilson, and parked in the driveway is a blue Honda Civic. Through the kitchen window, he catches a glimpse of blonde hair. His breath catches in his throat because this is it. This is where his dead wife has been living for 15 years under someone else's name. Michael sits in his car for 20 minutes, gathering courage, rehearsing what he's going to say. How do you knock on someone's door and tell them you think they're your deceased spouse? How do you even begin that conversation without sounding completely unhinged? Finally, Michael gets out of his car and walks up to that front door like he's walking to his own execution. Each step feels enormous, like the ground might collapse underneath him. He raises his hand to knock, and it's shaking so badly he can barely control it. 3 soft knocks. Then he waits, listening to his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. He hears footsteps inside, slow and hesitant, and he knows she's looking at him through the peephole. For a moment, nothing happens. Then the footsteps move away from the door. She's not going to answer. She's hiding from him. But then, miracle of miracles, the door opens just a crack. Claire's green eyes appear in the gap, red from crying, filled with confusion and fear. "Please," she whispers, "just go away. I don't know who you think I am, but you're wrong." Her voice is shaking, but Michael can hear something else underneath the fear. Recognition. Memory trying to claw its way to the surface. "Sarah," he says gently, like he's talking to a frightened animal. "I know this is impossible to understand, but I'm your husband. My name is Michael Anderson. We were married for 10 years before the accident." Claire steps onto the porch, wrapping her arms around herself like she's trying to hold her sanity together. Michael slowly reaches into his wallet and pulls out a faded photograph. It's their wedding picture, him in a black tuxedo, her in a flowing white dress, both of them radiating pure happiness. He holds it out to her with trembling hands. "This is us, Sarah. June 15th, 1997. You wore your grandmother's pearl necklace. We danced to At Last by Etta James." Claire stares at the photo, and her face goes completely white, because she knows that dress. She's dreamed about that dress 1,000 times without understanding why. No, no, no. Claire starts backing away, but she can't stop staring at the photograph. "That's not possible. Thomas found me alone. No one came looking for me. No one." But even as she's saying the words, more memories are flooding back like a dam bursting. Michael's laugh echoing through their kitchen, his arms around her during thunderstorms. The way he used to trace patterns on her back when she couldn't sleep. The miscarriage that broke both their hearts. Their last fight before she drove into that storm, angry and heartbroken. "Oh God," she whispers. "Oh God, what happened to us?" The memories are coming too fast, too intense. 15 years of buried life, trying to surface all at once. Claire can't handle it. She drops the wedding photo and runs back into the house, slamming the door behind her. Michael pounds on the door, calling her name. "Sarah, please. We can figure this out together. I've been looking for you for 15 years. But she's not coming back out. Through the window, he can see her collapsed on the living room floor, sobbing in her hands while an older man, Thomas, he assumes, kneels beside her, looking confused and terrified. That's when Thomas Wilson comes outside, and Michael gets his first look at the man who's been caring for his wife for 15 years. Thomas is probably in his 60s, with kind eyes and silver hair, but right now he looks fierce and protective. "You need to leave," Thomas says firmly. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but Claire's my daughter, and you're upsetting her." Michael stares at this man who genuinely believes he's Claire's father, who has no idea he's been harboring someone else's wife. "She's not your daughter," Michael says quietly. "Her name is Sarah Anderson, and she's my wife. She was in a car accident 15 years ago, and somehow you found her instead of the people who were looking for her." The truth is finally coming out, and it's about to shatter two families' understanding of everything they thought they knew about love and loss. That evening, Thomas sits with Claire in their living room, watching her fall apart piece by piece like a puzzle that's been shaken apart. She's been crying for hours, clutching that wedding photograph like it's both her salvation and her destruction, staring at the face of the woman she used to be. "Tell me the truth, Thomas," she whispers through her tears, her voice raw from sobbing. "Tell me exactly how you found me 15 years ago. Because that man, Michael, he knew things about me that I've only seen in dreams. He knew about a pearl necklace, about a song we danced to, about a life I can't remember but somehow feel in my bones." Thomas's heart is breaking because he's watched this woman rebuild herself from absolutely nothing, and now her past is threatening to destroy the fragile peace they've both found together. But he can't lie to her anymore, not when she's looking at him with those desperate green eyes, begging for the honesty he should have given her years ago. So Thomas tells her everything, and I mean everything, about that terrible night that changed both their lives forever. How he was driving home from checking on his cattle during the storm when he saw movement in the ditch beside Highway 92. Claire was crawling away from a mangled car that had rolled down an embankment and was already starting to catch fire. She was bleeding from a severe head wound, her clothes torn, mumbling incoherently about needing to get home to someone named Michael. "You kept saying, 'I have to tell Michael I'm sorry. I have to go home to Michael,'" Thomas admits, his voice heavy with 15 years of guilt. But when I asked you where Michael was, where home was, you just stared at me with these blank eyes like you'd never heard those words before in your life. You couldn't remember anything except that name and this overwhelming need to apologize to someone you couldn't find. Claire's hands fly to her mouth because she's starting to remember fragments of that night. The fight with Michael before she left, the way she slammed the door in anger, the last words they spoke in rage instead of love. Thomas explains the decision that changed both their lives forever, the choice that seemed so right at the time, but now feels like the most devastating mistake he's ever made. Your car was completely destroyed in the fire, Claire. There was no identification, no purse, no wallet, nothing to tell me who you were or where you belonged. The license plate was melted beyond recognition. When I brought you here and Patricia treated your injuries, we genuinely assumed you were homeless, maybe running from an abusive situation that you were better off forgetting. You were so scared, so broken, flinching every time I tried to help you. When you couldn't remember your name or where you came from, we thought it might actually be a blessing from God. Maybe forgetting your past was your mind's way of protecting you from something terrible that had happened to you. But Claire understands now that the terrible thing wasn't in her past. It was the separation from the man who loved her, who was probably searching desperately for her while she was learning to be someone completely different. Thomas continues his painful confession, telling Claire about Patricia's medical assessment and the advice that shaped everything that came after. My daughter said the head trauma had caused severe retrograde amnesia, that your entire past had been essentially erased from your conscious memory. She warned me you might never recover those memories, that your previous identity could be permanently gone. We made the decision to give you a new identity, to let you become Claire Wilson, because we genuinely believed no one was looking for you. We thought we were saving you, giving you a chance at a new life without whatever pain you've been running from. The irony is absolutely devastating. While Thomas and Patricia were protecting Claire from a past they assumed was traumatic, Michael was 20 miles away at Memorial Hospital, identifying the wrong body and preparing to bury an empty coffin while dying inside from losing the love of his life. Two families were being destroyed by the same tragedy, and neither knew the other existed. Claire stares at this man who's been her father figure for 15 years, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time since she woke up in his house. Thomas Wilson isn't a villain in this story. He's a lonely widower who lost his own daughter Rebecca in a car accident 3 years before he found Claire, and he saw saving her as a chance to fill the enormous void in his heart. "You never try to find out who I really was," she says quietly, and it's not an accusation, just a heartbroken observation that cuts through both of them like a knife. Thomas nods, tears streaming down his weathered face. "I was selfish, Claire. I needed you as much as you needed me, maybe more. When weeks passed, and no one came looking for a missing woman matching your description, I convinced myself it was meant to be. I convinced myself that you were better off as Claire Wilson, safe and loved on this farm, than whoever you'd been before in a world that had apparently forgotten you existed." That night, Claire goes through the few belongings Thomas saved from her accident, items she's looked at thousands of times without understanding their significance. A tarnished silver bracelet that somehow survived the fire, a fragment of blue fabric from what used to be a cashmere sweater, a small heart-shaped locket that won't open because the clasp was damaged in the crash. As she holds each precious object, more memories surface like pieces of a massive puzzle finally clicking into place after 15 years of confusion. The bracelet was a third anniversary gift from Michael, engraved with "Forever Yours" in his careful handwriting. The blue sweater was her absolute favorite, the one she wore when they spent a weekend painting their bedroom sunshine yellow, because they were hoping for a baby. The locket contains a tiny photograph of them from their honeymoon in Maine, both of them sunburned and laughing on a rocky beach. These aren't random objects. They're breadcrumbs leading her back to a life she lost and a love that never stopped searching for her. Claire lies in bed that night, and for the first time in 15 years, she's not having those strange, disconnected dreams that always left her feeling homesick for a place she couldn't name. Instead, she's remembering her real life in vivid, heartbreaking detail. Michael's face when she told him about the pregnancy, the pure joy that lit up his entire world. The devastating morning when she started bleeding and they rushed to the hospital only to lose their baby before it even had a chance to live. The way grief slowly poisoned their perfect marriage, making them say cruel things they didn't mean, turning their dream home into a minefield of painful reminders. The night she drove into that storm, she wasn't running away from Michael forever. She was running from their shared pain, needing space to breathe and figure out how to heal their broken hearts. But the accident stole that choice from both of them, trapping him in eternal grief while erasing her memory of why she needed to come home to him. The next morning, Claire drives to see Patricia Mills, the woman who's been like a beloved aunt to her for 15 years, who's also Dr. Patricia Mills, the neurologist who originally treated her amnesia and helped create her new identity. Patricia takes one look at Claire's tear-stained face and knows that everything they've carefully built together is about to change forever. "You're remembering," she says simply, her voice filled with a mixture of medical curiosity and maternal concern. Claire nods, fresh tears streaming down her face. "There's a man named Michael Anderson who's been mourning my death for 15 years, Patricia. We were married. We loved each other more than life itself. And because of a hospital's mistake in identifying bodies and your family's well-intentioned desire to protect me, he buried the wrong woman while I was learning to live as someone I never was. 15 years, Patricia. He's been alone for 15 years because everyone thought I was dead." Dr. Mills explains what's happening to Claire's brain with the clinical expertise she's developed over decades of treating amnesia patients. "What you're experiencing is called cascading recall, and it's actually quite rare in cases of retrograde amnesia as severe as yours was. Traumatic memories can be suppressed for years, especially when they're combined with brain injury and a completely new environment that reinforces the memory loss. But when you saw Michael yesterday, it triggered a massive neurological response. Your brain recognized him on a level much deeper than conscious memory, cellular recognition, if you will, and now that the dam is broken, everything is flooding back at once." She warns Claire that this process can be overwhelming and unpredictable, that she might remember things out of chronological order or with intense emotional impact that could be difficult to process. "The woman you've been for 15 years and the woman you were before are both completely real, Claire. Now you have to figure out how to integrate them into one coherent person." Claire asks the question that's been haunting her since she woke up this morning. "Can I get all my memories back, Patricia? Can I remember what it felt like to be Sarah Anderson, to be Michael's wife, to have that life I lost?" Dr. Mills is cautiously optimistic, choosing her words carefully. Many patients with recovered traumatic amnesia can reclaim significant portions of their past, especially when they have strong emotional connections and environmental triggers to guide the process. Michael's presence is obviously an incredibly powerful catalyst for your memory recovery, more powerful than anything I've seen in 30 years of practice. If you choose to work with him, to revisit places and experiences you shared, to immerse yourself in the life you used to have, you might recover much more of who Sarah Anderson was. But then comes the question that makes Claire's blood run cold. The real challenge isn't remembering who you were, Claire. The challenge is deciding who you want to be now, and whether Sarah Anderson can coexist with the life you've built as Claire Wilson. Because Michael isn't the only one whose life will be turned upside down by this revelation. He has a new family now. Michael comes home that night from his confrontation with Thomas Wilson, and he looks like a man who's been through war. He sits at their kitchen table, staring at his hands, trying to figure out how to tell Jennifer that their entire marriage might be built on a lie. She's making her morning coffee, humming that little tune she always hums, completely unaware that her husband's world just exploded into a million pieces. "Honey," she says, noticing his expression, "you look terrible. What happened yesterday? You said you were going to run errands, but you've been acting strange for days now." Michael realizes there's no way around this conversation anymore. The truth is too big to hide, and Jennifer deserves to know what's happening before this situation spirals completely out of control. So Michael takes the deepest breath of his life and starts talking. "Jennifer, I need to tell you something that's going to sound absolutely impossible, but I need you to listen to me completely before you say anything. He tells her about the coffee shop, about seeing Sarah alive after 15 years of believing she was dead, about the wedding photograph, and the way Claire ran from him in terror. Jennifer's coffee mug freezes halfway to her lips, and her face goes completely white. "What are you saying, Michael?" she whispers. "Are you telling me that your first wife, the woman you buried 15 years ago, is alive? That she's been living 20 minutes away from us this whole time?" The devastation in her voice is heartbreaking because Jennifer immediately understands what this means for their marriage, for their family, for everything they've built together. What they don't realize is that Emma is listening from the doorway, and 12-year-old Emma is smart enough to understand exactly what's happening. She hears her father explaining about his first wife, about a woman named Sarah who was supposed to be dead but isn't, about how this discovery changes everything for their family. Emma's been wondering why her dad has been acting so strange lately, why he's been distracted and sad and jumping every time the phone rings. Now she knows, and the knowledge is terrifying because Emma understands that this mysterious woman from her father's past could destroy the only family she's ever known. Her parents don't see her standing there, absorbing every word of this conversation that's going to change her life forever. Jennifer starts pacing around their kitchen like a caged animal, trying to process information that doesn't make sense. How is this possible, Michael? How does someone just come back from the dead after 15 years? Did you make a mistake at the hospital? Was the funeral fake? I don't understand how this could happen. Michael explains about the hospital error, about how Sarah was thrown from her car before it caught fire, about how another woman died in a separate accident the same night. The hospital made a mistake with the identification, and I was so destroyed by grief that I didn't look carefully enough to realize the body wasn't really Sarah. Meanwhile, she was living with a farmer named Thomas Wilson, calling herself Claire because she had amnesia and couldn't remember her real life. They moved to the living room, and that's when Emma finally reveals herself. She walks in with tears streaming down her 12-year-old face and asks the question that cuts right to the heart of everything. "Daddy, if your first wife is alive, does that mean you're not really married to Mom? Does that mean I'm not really your daughter?" The question hits Michael like a physical blow because Emma is absolutely right. If Sarah is legally alive, then his marriage to Jennifer might not be valid. If he's still technically married to Sarah, then what does that make his relationship with Jennifer and Emma? The legal and emotional implications are staggering, and Michael realizes this situation is going to be infinitely more complicated than just reuniting with his lost love. Jennifer immediately pulls Emma into her arms, and Michael can see that his wife is trying to be strong for their daughter, even though her own world is falling apart. "Emma, sweetheart, nothing changes the fact that your dad loves you more than anything in the world, okay? This situation doesn't change our family." But even as Jennifer says the words, Michael can hear the uncertainty in her voice. Because how can nothing change? If Sarah is alive and starts recovering her memories, if she wants her husband back, if the law says she's still legally married to Michael, then everything changes. Jennifer looks at Michael over Emma's head with an expression that asks 1,000 questions he doesn't have answers to. What happens to their marriage? What happens to their daughter? What happens to the life they've spent 8 years building together? After Emma goes to school, Jennifer and Michael have the conversation they've both been dreading. "I need to know what you're thinking, Michael," Jennifer says, her voice steady but her hands shaking. "Are you planning to go back to her? If this Sarah woman recovers her memories and wants to rebuild the life you had together, what does that mean for us?" Michael feels like he's being torn in half because he honestly doesn't know the answer. Part of him has never stopped loving Sarah, has never stopped mourning what they lost. But another part of him loves Jennifer and Emma with everything he has, and the thought of losing them is unbearable. "I don't know, Jennifer. I need to help Sarah figure out who she is and what she remembers. I owe her that much after 15 years. But I also know that you and Emma are my family now, and I can't imagine my life without you." Michael makes a decision that he hopes is the right one, though he's not sure there is a right answer in this impossible situation. "I think we need to approach Sarah together," he tells Jennifer. I think you and Emma should meet her, should be part of this process of figuring out what happens next. This affects all of us, not just me and Sarah. If we're going to get through this as a family, we need to face it as a family. Jennifer stares at him like he suggested they all jump off a cliff together. You want me to meet the woman you were married to for 10 years? You want me to sit down with your first wife and discuss how we're going to share you? The pain in her voice is devastating, but Michael knows this is the only way to handle a situation that has no good solutions. That night, Michael and Jennifer lie in bed staring at the ceiling, both of them unable to sleep, both of them afraid to say what they're really thinking. Jennifer finally breaks the silence. Michael, I need you to be completely honest with me. If Sarah gets her memories back, if she wants to rebuild your marriage, would you choose her over us? Michael turns to look at his wife, this incredible woman who brought him back to life when he thought happiness was impossible, and he realizes he can't give her the answer she needs to hear. I don't know, Jennifer. I loved Sarah with everything I had, and losing her nearly destroyed me. But I love you and Emma just as much now. I don't know how to choose between my past and my present when they're both asking me to be someone I was before this all happened. The next morning, they sit Emma down for the most difficult conversation any family should have to have. We're going to meet this woman, Sarah, Michael tells his daughter. We're going to help her figure out who she is and what she remembers, and we're going to do it together as a family, because that's how we handle everything together. This doesn't mean our family is breaking apart, Emma. It means our family is strong enough to help someone who's lost and confused, even when the situation is complicated. Emma looks between her parents with the wisdom of someone far older than 12 and asks, "But what if she wants you back, Daddy? What if she remembers being your wife and wants our family to go away?" It's the question they're all thinking, the question that hangs over everything like a storm cloud. And Michael realizes that meeting Sarah together might either save their family or destroy it completely. But it's the only choice that lets them face the truth with their integrity intact. 3 days later, Dr. Patricia Mills arranges what might be the most emotionally charged meeting of everyone's lives. She set up her conference room like a neutral zone where Sarah, Michael, and Thomas can sit down together and try to piece together 15 years of devastating mistakes. Sarah sits across from Michael, and for the first time since that day at the coffee shop, she's looking directly at him instead of running away. The memories are still fragmentary, still confusing, but they're getting stronger every day. I remember fragments, she tells him, her voice shaking. I remember your laugh. I remember the way you used to make pancakes on Sunday mornings. I remember losing a baby and how it broke both of us. Michael's eyes fill with tears because she's remembering their life together, piece by precious piece. Sarah reaches across the table and touches Michael's hand for the first time in 15 years, and the contact sends shock waves through both of them. It's like her body remembers what her mind is still trying to reconstruct. I remember our wedding day, she whispers, fresh tears streaming down her face. I remember dancing to At Last and thinking I was the luckiest woman in the world because I got to marry my best friend. I remember the house on Maple Street and the way you used to leave me love notes in my coffee mug. Michael is sobbing now because she's not just remembering facts. She's remembering feelings, remembering the love that nearly destroyed him when he thought it was gone forever. Thomas sits quietly, watching the reunion he never expected to witness, knowing that his role as Claire's protector is about to end. Dr. Mills presents the results of her investigation into what really happened 15 years ago. She has hospital records, police reports, everything that proves the massive error that changed 4 lives forever. The hospital confused 2 accident victims, she explains methodically. Sarah Anderson was thrown from her vehicle before it caught fire. Jane Doe number 247 was burned beyond recognition in a separate accident the same night. When Michael identified the body as his wife, no one realized they were looking at the wrong woman. Sarah was listed as unidentified in the system because Thomas brought her here for private treatment instead of to a hospital. The paperwork tells the story of a tragedy born from good intentions and terrible timing. If Thomas had taken Sarah to Memorial Hospital instead of his farm, she would have been reunited with Michael within days. Thomas looks across the table at Michael with tears streaming down his weathered face. And the words that come out of him are 15 years of accumulated guilt and regret. "I am so sorry," he says, his voice breaking. "I thought I was saving her from something terrible. I thought no one was looking for her because weeks went by and no missing person reports match her description. I never imagined that someone like you was out there, mourning her death, building a grave for a woman who was learning to bake bread in my kitchen." Michael stares at this man who unknowingly stole his wife. And surprisingly, he doesn't feel anger. Thomas Wilson isn't a villain. He's a lonely widower who found a broken woman and tried to heal her the only way he knew how. In a strange way, Michael is grateful that Sarah was loved and protected, even if it meant 15 years of separation. Then Sarah asks the question that changes everything. "Michael, Dr. Mills told me that you have a family now, a wife and a daughter. Tell me about them." Michael's face transforms when he talks about Jennifer and Emma, and Sarah can see the genuine love there, the deep commitment to the family he built after losing her. "Jennifer saved my life," he admits. "After you died, after I thought you died, I was destroyed. I didn't want to live anymore. She brought me back from that darkness and gave me Emma, who is the light of my world." Sarah listens to him describe his current family, and her heart breaks in a completely different way because she realizes that her return isn't just a miracle. It's also a catastrophe that could destroy the happiness Michael found after losing her. Sarah absorbs this information with a grace that breaks everyone's heart. She's remembering more and more of their marriage, the deep love they shared, the dreams they built together, the tragedy that started to tear them apart before the accident separated them forever. But she's also a different person now than she was 15 years ago. Claire Wilson has her own experiences, her own relationships, her own way of seeing the world. "I can see how much you love them, Michael," she says quietly. "I can see that you built something beautiful after losing me. The question is, what do we do now?" I'm remembering who Sarah Anderson was, but I'm also Claire Wilson. And you're not just my husband anymore, but Jennifer's husband and Emma's father. Michael is visibly torn between the woman he never stopped loving and the family he can't bear to lose. "I don't know how to do this, Sarah. I don't know how to honor what we had while protecting what I have now. I love you. I never stopped loving you, but I also love Jennifer and Emma with everything I am. How do I choose between my past and my present when both of them are asking me to be the man they need me to be?" Sarah sees the agony in his eyes, and she realizes that her return isn't the gift she thought it would be. It's a choice no one should have to make, a situation with no winners, only different kinds of loss. The love of her life has moved on, and she has to decide whether reclaiming him is worth destroying the happiness he's found. Dr. Mills suggests something that terrifies everyone, but might be the only path forward. I think Sarah should meet Jennifer and Emma. I think all of you need to sit down together and figure out how to handle this situation as adults who care about each other's well-being. Sarah's hands start shaking at the thought of meeting the woman who took her place, the child who calls her husband Daddy. But she nods because she knows it's the right thing to do. If we're going to figure out what happens next, we need to face this together. Jennifer deserves to meet me, to see that I'm real, to have a voice in whatever decision gets made about our family. The word "our" hangs in the air because nobody knows exactly whose family they're talking about anymore. Michael agrees to arrange a meeting between Sarah and his current family, even though the thought terrifies him more than anything he's ever done in his life. Jennifer is an incredible woman, he tells Sarah. She's strong and compassionate, and she's been an amazing mother to Emma. I think you'll understand why I fell in love with her, and I hope she'll understand why I never stopped loving you. Thomas speaks up for the first time in an hour. "Claire, Sarah, whatever name you choose, I want you to know that you'll always have a home with me if you need it. This situation isn't your fault, and you don't have to sacrifice your happiness to fix everyone else's pain." But Sarah knows that happiness isn't going to be simple for anyone involved in this triangle of love and loss and complicated second chances. As the meeting ends, Sarah looks at Michael with an expression that contains 15 years of lost love and the wisdom of a woman who's learned that sometimes loving someone means letting them go. I'm remembering more every day, she tells him. I'm remembering how much we loved each other, how we planned to grow old together, how we thought nothing could ever come between us. But I'm also learning that sometimes love means wanting someone to be happy, even if their happiness doesn't include you. Michael realizes that the woman he married has grown into someone even more remarkable during their years apart. Someone who might be strong enough to make the impossible choice between reclaiming her past and protecting his present. Tomorrow, they'll all sit down together. Two women who love the same man, a child who doesn't understand why her world is shifting, and a man who has to figure out how to honor everyone he loves without destroying anyone's chance at happiness. 2 days later, they meet at a neutral coffee shop across town. Not Mountain View Cafe, because that place holds too much emotional weight for everyone involved. Sarah arrives first, and she's terrified. She's about to meet the woman who married her husband and the child who calls him daddy, and she has no idea how this conversation is supposed to go. When Michael walks in with Jennifer and Emma, Sarah's breath catches in her throat. Jennifer is beautiful in a warm, approachable way that Sarah immediately understands. This is the kind of woman who could heal a broken man's heart. And Emma has Michael's eyes and his smile, and Sarah can see why this child means everything to him. The little girl she and Michael lost would have been about Emma's age now, and the parallel is heartbreaking. The introductions are surreal and heartbreaking. Jennifer, Emma, this is Sarah, Michael says, and his voice cracks because he's introducing his current family to his supposedly dead wife. Jennifer extends her hand with a grace that Sarah finds incredible. This woman is meeting her husband's first wife and managing to be polite and dignified despite the fact that her entire world is crumbling. It's good to finally meet you, Sarah, Jennifer says, and you can hear her struggling to find the right words for an impossible situation. Michael has told me so much about you over the years. I'm sorry for everything you've been through. Sarah almost starts crying at Jennifer's kindness, because this woman has every right to hate her, but instead is showing compassion for someone who could destroy her family. Emma stares at Sarah with the unfiltered curiosity of a 12-year-old who's trying to understand how the adult world got so complicated. You really don't remember anything about being married to my dad? She asks, and there's no accusation in her voice, just genuine confusion about how someone can forget an entire life. Sarah smiles sadly and explains about the amnesia, about waking up as Claire Wilson with no memory of being Sarah Anderson. It's like there were two different people living in my head, she tells Emma. Claire, who loved Thomas and worked at the coffee shop, and Sarah, who was buried so deep I didn't know she existed until I saw your dad again. Emma nods like this makes perfect sense to her, because children are often better at accepting impossible things than adults are. Sarah asks Jennifer about their life together, and Jennifer's face lights up when she talks about meeting Michael, about how broken he was when they first started dating, about the long process of helping him learn to trust happiness again. He talked about you a lot in the beginning, Jennifer admits. He was so afraid of betraying your memory by moving on. It took him years to believe that loving me didn't mean he had stopped loving you. Sarah listens to this story of her husband's healing with a mixture of heartbreak and gratitude, because she's learning that Michael didn't just replace her. He slowly, carefully learned to love again while still honoring what they'd had together. Jennifer isn't her replacement. She's her own person who brought Michael back to life in a completely different way. As Sarah watches Michael interact with Jennifer and Emma, she sees something that breaks her heart in the most beautiful way possible. This isn't just a man going through the motions of a second marriage. This is a man who found real, deep, genuine love after losing everything. The way he looks at Jennifer, the way he automatically reaches for Emma's hand when she seems nervous, the inside jokes they share. This is a real family built on authentic love and years of shared experiences. Sarah realizes that she's not just looking at the people who took her place. She's looking at people who created something entirely new and beautiful with the man she loves, and destroying that would be unforgivable, even if she has the legal right to do it. Emma, with the brutal honesty that only children possess, asks the question everyone's thinking but nobody wants to voice. Are you going to try to take my dad away from us? The silence that follows is deafening, because it's the question that cuts right to the heart of everything they're all afraid of. Sarah looks at this beautiful, innocent child who's done nothing wrong except exist, and she realizes that Emma is the key to understanding what's really at stake here. This isn't just about Sarah and Michael and their lost love. It's about a 12-year-old girl who's built her entire identity around being Michael Anderson's daughter, and who would be devastated if that security disappeared. Sarah reaches across the table and takes Emma's hand, and her voice is steady and sure when she answers. Emma, your dad loves you more than anything in the world. That's not going to change, no matter what happens with the grown-up stuff. You're his daughter, and Jennifer is an amazing mom, and what you have together is real and beautiful. I would never want to take that away from you. Emma studies Sarah's face like she's trying to determine if this strange woman is telling the truth, and apparently she decides Sarah is trustworthy because she nods and relaxes slightly. Jennifer watches this interaction with tears in her eyes because she's witnessing her husband's first wife promise to protect her stepdaughter, and the generosity of spirit involved is almost overwhelming. Jennifer does something that surprises everyone, including herself. She reaches over and squeezes Sarah's hand. Thank you, she says simply. Thank you for seeing what we have here and understanding how precious it is. I know this has to be incredibly difficult for you, and I want you to know that I don't take Michael's love lightly. He talks about you like you were the most important person in his world, and I've always known I was sharing his heart with your memory. Now I'm sharing it with the real you, and somehow that feels more honest. The two women look at each other with an understanding that transcends rivalry, because they both love the same man and want him to be happy, even if his happiness complicates their own. Michael watches these two incredible women handle an impossible situation with more grace than he's managing, and he realizes that whatever decision gets made, it has to honor the strength and love they're both showing. Sarah is choosing to protect his current family, even though it means giving up her chance to reclaim her past. Jennifer is acknowledging Sarah's place in his heart, even though it means accepting that she'll never have all of him. Both women are being more generous and mature than he feels capable of being, and he knows that whatever happens next, he has to be worthy of their sacrifice and understanding. As they prepare to leave, Sarah makes an announcement that changes everything. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I want you all to know what I've decided. I'm not going to try to rebuild my marriage with Michael. What we had was beautiful, but it was 15 years ago, and we're all different people now. Michael, you found happiness after losing me, and I won't be the one to take that away from you or from Jennifer and Emma. She pauses, looking at each of them. But I would like to be part of your lives if you'll have me. Not as Michael's wife, but as family, because that's what we are now in this strange, complicated way. We're all connected by love and loss and the weird twists of fate that brought us back together. Michael stares at her in amazement because his first wife is offering to become part of his second family rather than competing with it. It's the most generous gift anyone has ever given him, and he realizes that the woman he married has become even more remarkable than he remembered. 1 month later, something miraculous is happening in Riverside Park. Sarah, Michael, Jennifer, and Emma are having what can only be described as the world's most unusual family picnic. It's been a month of careful conversations, therapy sessions with Dr. Mills, and slowly learning how to navigate this new reality they've created together. Sarah has been living in a small apartment downtown, close enough to be part of their lives, but far enough away to give everyone space to adjust. She's been going by Sarah Wilson now, keeping Thomas's surname as a way to honor the man who saved her life, while reclaiming her first name and the memories that come with it. And somehow, against all odds, this strange blended family is actually working. Emma has embraced Sarah with the adaptability that only children possess, and she's decided that having an Aunt Sarah who used to be married to her dad is actually pretty cool. Wait until I tell Madison that my family is way more interesting than hers, Emma says, making everyone laugh. She's been asking Sarah about her amnesia with scientific curiosity, fascinated by the idea that someone can lose and then recover 15 years of memories. Do you remember being my age? Emma asks, "What was it like in the old days when Dad was young?" Sarah laughs and tells her stories about Michael in his 20s, when he had dreams of designing skyscrapers and thought he was too cool for romantic comedies, even though Sarah could always talk him into watching them. Michael watches Sarah and Jennifer interact, and he's amazed by what he's witnessing. These two women have become genuine friends, bonded by their shared love for him, but also by their own connection to each other. Jennifer helps Sarah navigate modern technology that didn't exist 15 years ago, while Sarah shares stories about Michael's past that help Jennifer understand parts of her husband she'd never seen before. "Did you know your dad once drove 8 hours to surprise me with my favorite pizza from this place in Chicago?" Sarah tells Emma, and Jennifer laughs because that's exactly the kind of romantic gesture Michael would make. They're creating new memories while honoring old ones, and somehow it doesn't feel like betrayal. It feels like healing. During a quiet moment, Jennifer and Sarah sit together on a park bench while Michael and Emma play frisbee. "I need to ask you something," Jennifer says carefully. "Do you ever regret your decision? Do you ever wish you'd fought for him instead of stepping back?" Sarah considers this question seriously before answering. "I won't lie and say it doesn't hurt sometimes. I love Michael with everything I had, and part of me will always love him. But love isn't just about what you want. It's about what's best for the people you care about. Michael is happy with you. Emma is thriving, and you've built something beautiful together. Destroying that to reclaim something from the past wouldn't be love. It would be selfishness." Michael and Sarah have their own moment of private conversation, walking along the park path while Jennifer and Emma feed ducks at the pond. "I need you to know something," Michael tells her. "What happened to us, the way we lost each other, it wasn't anyone's fault. We were both grieving, both struggling, both saying things we didn't mean. If that accident hadn't happened, I think we would have found our way back to each other." Sarah nods, tears in her eyes. "I remember that now. I remember that the last fight we had wasn't really about having another baby. It was about being afraid to hope again after losing so much. I was driving away from you that night, but I was planning to come home. I just needed to clear my head and figure out how to tell you I was ready to try again. I'm glad you found Jennifer," Sarah continues. "I'm glad you learned to love again, learned to trust happiness again. The man I fell in love with deserved to have a full life, even if I couldn't be part of it. And Jennifer, she's exactly the kind of woman I would have wanted you to find. Strong, kind, funny, completely devoted to you and Emma. I couldn't have chosen better myself." Michael stops walking and looks at her with wonder. "How are you so okay with this? How are you so generous about a situation that should make you bitter and angry?" Sarah smiles sadly. "Because 15 years of amnesia taught me that life is too short and too unpredictable to waste on anger. I got my memories back, but I also got something else: perspective. Sometimes love means letting go." Jennifer approaches them with an idea that surprises everyone. "I was thinking," she says, "what if we made this a regular thing? Monthly family picnics where we all get together. Emma loves having you around, Sarah, and honestly, I do too. You're not just Michael's past anymore. You're part of our present, part of our family in this new way we're creating." Emma bounces with excitement at this suggestion. "Yes, and Sarah can come to my birthday party next month, and maybe she can teach me how to make those cookies Dad is always talking about from when you guys were married." Sarah laughs through happy tears because she's being invited to be part of birthdays and holidays and ordinary moments that make a family. Just as they're packing up the picnic, Thomas Wilson arrives. Sarah had invited him to join them, and he approaches this unusual gathering with the same gentle kindness he's shown for 15 years. "Thomas," Jennifer says, extending her hand, "thank you for taking such good care of Sarah all these years. I know this situation is complicated for you too." Thomas looks around at this group of people who've figured out how to love each other despite impossible circumstances. He says, "I spent 15 years thinking I'd lost my daughter Rebecca and gained Claire. Now I realize I didn't just gain Claire, I gained all of you. This is what family really looks like, isn't it? Not just blood and marriage, but people who choose to love each other no matter how complicated it gets." As the sun starts to set over the park, Sarah looks around at this impossible family they've created together and feels something she hasn't felt in 15 years complete. Not because she got her old life back, but because she found something even better, a new kind of love that includes forgiveness, sacrifice, and the understanding that families can be created in ways no one ever expects. I used to think that love meant holding on no matter what, she tells the group. But I've learned that sometimes love means letting go, and sometimes it means finding new ways to hold on. We all lost something when I had that accident. Michael lost his wife. I lost my memories. Jennifer and Emma lost the certainty of being Michael's only family. But look what we found instead. The story ends with something that should be impossible, but somehow feels completely right. A group hug that includes Michael's dead wife, his current wife, their daughter, and a man who saved them all by making the wrong choice for the right reasons. Emma is in the center of it all, surrounded by adults who love her and each other in ways that defy conventional definitions of family. "This is the best family ever," Emma announces, and everyone laughs because she's absolutely right. Sometimes love doesn't look like what we expect it to look like. Sometimes families are created by tragedy and healed by forgiveness. Sometimes the people we lose find their way back to us in ways we never imagined. And sometimes that return isn't about going backward. It's about moving forward together into something completely new. What would you do if you had to choose between the love you lost and the love you found? Share your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if this story touched your heart. And subscribe for more incredible tales about the complicated, beautiful ways that love finds a way to survive anything life throws at it.